Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live interview with the Master Session with Hugo Martin. But before we begin this session, I wanted to just give some basic information regarding CGMA's open registration. For those of you who would like to sign up for our classes, registration is now open, so please go to our website and check out our current lineup for classes. And for those of you in this session today, I will be providing a link to that page to register, so look out for it when I send it out. Again, registration is open, so please take a look at the classes and sign up as soon as you can because they do sell out rather quickly. But without any further ado, we have the wonderful, amazing art director for id Software, Mr. Hugo Martin, who basically would talk to us today about some of his techniques and his work. So without any more hesitation, Hugo, I'm going to pass control over to you so we can see your screen and begin this Q&A. And for those of you, again, in attendance, you should have saw a question module where you can enter in your questions for the session. So as Hugo is talking and showing his work, please feel free to enter any questions you have in that question module, and we'll get to them in the order that they're received or as best as we can. But beyond that, Hugo, could you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, how you entered the industry, and take it from there.
Great. How you doing? It's exciting to be here talking to you guys. I started at Pratt Institute, and I graduated in 2000. Worked for 2 years in New York as a concept artist and also in the animation industry. I started out at MTV Animation, and then I, from there, did my first real concept job was at Wizards of the Coast in their IP department. If you excuse me, I have a cold. That's why I sound kind of nasally. So, yeah, then I worked in their IP department. That was a really great learning experience. I was kind of saving my money because I knew I wanted to do to work on my camera. And so after Wizards of the Coast, I went to Art Center College of Design to study in their transportation design department. I got my degree, a Bachelor's of Science in Transportation Design, with sort of a focus on entertainment. I knew going in I always wanted to do entertainment design and concept art, and I just wanted to round out my illustration skills with industrial design, some industrial design training, specifically in automotive design because I love cars. I've also just, I think I'm as much a student today as I ever was, back then. I graduated Art Center in 2005. But yeah, I still take classes all the time, still read as many books as I can on the subject of design or, things like that. I don't think anybody should ever, the more you know, the more you realize you have so much more to learn. So so 2005, I went to Naughty Dog right after Art Center, and I worked on Jack X Team Racing, the last game that they made, and then for the Jack series. And then from there, I went to work on Uncharted 1. That was their first time that they were doing realism at the company, so it was a really great time to be there to watch that transition. It was a really great learning experience for me. And then after that, I went to Blur Studios, which was, pretty awesome. It was obviously Blur has a great name in the industry. They do really great work, so it was an exciting time to be there. I spent about 4 years there, and I spent about 4 years there, and sorry, I'm just talking to my wife right now. I spent about 4 years there doing some really cool work. I got to work on a lot of different cinematics and things, and worked on Star Wars games and Halo games and stuff like that. And from there, I went just freelance. I wanted to try out a bunch of different projects, so just sort of open things up and see what I could do, kind of go my own way for a little while. And that was really exciting because I got to kind of spend like a few months, sometimes 6 months, 8 months at a company, work on a project. I worked on Lost Planet 3. I worked on the latest Sonic the Hedgehog game. I worked on a bunch of movies. The most notable of that period would probably be Pacific Rim. And that was it was just really exciting. It was fun to jump around from project to project. I feel like I was learning a lot. I was growing a lot as a person and an artist, and getting to see different directors, see the way they do things, get exposed to different processes and workflows and pipelines and things. And then I was I was kind of like, I felt like that was sort of like training, you know, like I was just gaining a lot of experiences, and I was definitely got the itch to get back into a company full time again after freelancing for about 3.5 years. So I was doing contract work on for id Software on their latest game, and I asked them if they were be interested in having me come down full time, and that's where I am today. We worked out a deal, and I'm the art director there now, and it's been there about 1.5 years. It's been really exciting. It's been really satisfying bringing sort of those experiences and different things that I've seen and people that I've worked with, and kind of get to work with this team, and I feel like I'm able to bring something to the table because I have all these different experiences that I've accumulated over my career. So it's been a ball working with those guys. It's got a really, really talented team down there. It's a very exciting place to be.
Very cool. Thank you for that biography, sir. So I see you have a document open in Photoshop right now. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're going to show us and walk us through?
Yes. Hold on a second.
No problem. And again, for those of you in attendance, please feel free to enter in your questions in the question module that you saw when you signed in. Again, we are taking questions on at this time, so again, feel free to enter any questions you have right now.
So this was for this is a big old realistic city in the mountains image, and they wanted it to be as realistic as.
Was this for a matte painting or just for concept work?
It's work. Yeah, it's pretty detailed, like, for concept work. But hold on a second.
No problem.
Okay. So usually I start out, there's like a thumbnail of some kind, like I'll do some quick thumbnail, or I'll kind of break in just using like brushes, but not really using too many photos or anything, just like hacking out the images with like a square brush and getting the basic composition down. And then I'll kind of little by little slap on photos when I need them and paint in stuff when I need them. This was for the client wanted it to be very realistic, so in that case I'd do a lot more sort of photo bashing and things like that. If they, it just depends on the project. I mean, it's really about speed and efficiency, so I don't really have a preference. I mean, I do enjoy painting. I probably enjoy design more than anything else. But I really do enjoy painting and composing images, and a lot of times with that, it's just about efficiency. So when you need to, you gotta find the right photo to get in all the different textures and stuff that you need, because it's so much faster than painting it by hand. So I'm going to slowly back out of the painting.
Okay. And while you do that, I have a question here concerning the number of layers that you have. Is that like an average, representation of the number of layers you typically work with in a single document, or do you end up compressing them down towards the final result?
So I do compress them down, but I like to keep them. I mean, it's kind of like non-destructive editing,
Right.
So sort of like if I want to try something and I don't want it to be a permanent, to permanently affect the painting, I'll just do it on a layer, and then what happens is you end up getting like 200 and look here that I have about 150 layers. So
you were just counting them?
I don't actually have 150 layers. I have collapsed them down quite a bit, but
oh, wow.
It's just the way. Yeah, well, no, I see that this one is layer 141, so that's there's quite a few. But Yes, it's just so that way I don't have to commit to things. I'm like, oh, let me try some smoke, and then I throw in a layer of smoke, and then, oh, well, I want to adjust the smoke. So I'm a little bit like overly cautious like that. And then usually what I'll do is if I get a big chunk of layers, I'll then kind of put them into a folder and then compress them at some point. And ideally, the painting would just be foreground, middle ground, background, like that. That would be the easiest way to do it. And usually, as you go, I'll have periods where I will have to stop and compress things. So that way I don't end up with like a file that's ridiculously huge and super heavy.
And this is also because you expect to have different, comments from directors or things about.
Excuse me?
Is this because you're expecting to have comments concerning our direction or the look of something, changing it later on in dailies or something?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of. If you're working in layers, it is easier to change stuff. But honestly, in Photoshop at this point, it's so easy to change stuff anyway that, you could pretty much alter the image, just make a new mask. I mean, ideally, you'd have, like, masks, things masked off if you want to change things specifically. But I feel like with something like this, I could pretty much change anything on it, relatively quickly.
Right.
So I'm just going to back through the image. You see those little birds that are in there. Those little birds are just nothing, strokes of paint. And actually, it's funny because if you really get up on the image, it's just a whole lot of nothing. It's actually just stuff that's smashed together. And then if you back out, hopefully it all holds together.
Right.
I hate zooming in on paintings for people because it kind of ruins the illusion. Like, oh wow, that actually looks like crap. But if you get up on it, the whole thing is like really you getting in, you throw in the photo, and then you color correct them so they match the scene, and that the value-wise, in terms of the value of the shadows, how light or dark the shadows are, they have to match the rest of the scene, and if you can get that right, then they'll look right. So when you back out like that, the value on this is actually a little bit off. It should be a little bit lighter, but you're working so fast on production that you don't really have time to always make everything perfect. But as long as it conveys your message, I mean, if it was a matte painting, that's when something would have to be adjusted, so that way you could, it would be perfect. So if I keep backing out of the image, what happens? This is not organized in any kind of logical way. It's kind of like layers of detail to tie things together, like sort of work in waves. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest difference that I've as an art director, the more that the sort of further along in my career that I get, the more managerial positions I've been holding. Like I was the visual development supervisor at Murata a few years ago, and then from there I was doing some managing stuff at another company, and now I'm at ID. So I don't really paint that much lately. It's mostly like quick sketches and things like that, and doing some concept. But it's all about as time goes on, like finding a more efficient ways to do things. I mean, it's still like that for me today. And the thing that I try and do is not. Well, that was a big change. Oh yeah, I remember the guy didn't like the fact that So see, and that's all just a photo. Like just kind of in right there, Excuse me. It's really good when you find one photo that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
So if you could, if you find one photo that you could just keep reusing and copy pasting in different ways. I have so many. See, a lot of these layers are unnecessary. They don't need to be this many layers. See, like that little detail right there is just enough to kind of like help
break up that edge. Yeah.
Yeah, break up that edge a little bit. I do this quite a bit, like airbrushing the bottoms of scenes and the tops of scenes. I got that from Tony Scott films. If you look at, I do a ton of film study. If you look at Tony Scott films, he always burns the edges. There's some sort of like effect on the screen. Like look at the opening of Top Gun. The whole top of the screen is actually dark, and it just looks cool. So I usually I'll burn the bottom or I'll burn the top of the image, because without it, it gets. I mean, excuse me. It's still pretty cool without it, but I don't know. I like the sense of mood that it creates. In this case, I was trying to actually create like a large cast shadow and just sort of group this stuff together.
Right. Let me see. So
this little tree inside is really important. Kind of, a little foreground element sets it in. I'll just quickly keep going and see what happens.
So there's a few questions that did pop up, but some of them are related to your techniques on Pacific Rim, so I'll save those a little bit later. But one of them I do think can apply to this. Typically, how many iterations do you go through on a given image like this or project of this kind?
How many what?
Iterations?
Not too many. It just depends. Like, not too many. Like, it depends on the project. If it's a game, you usually have more time to work on it on an individual piece. Like, whereas in a film, you're moving pretty fast, so they kind of want you to get done ASAP, and so it's best to try and hit it out the park on your first try. And if not, you'll kind of rework the painting as quickly as possible. So I don't really, for this painting, I didn't really have any iterations. It was just, I did it, and I showed him, he gave me some notes, and I implemented the notes, and then that was it. I was done.
Okay.
In games, you might have more of a process where it's like, here's an interesting one. Actually, that's the photo unedited. So in games, you might have more time to do like sketches and work out an idea, just because you're going to spend more time in a game with that image.
Right.
So it needs to be a little bit more fleshed out. But I'm slowly exposing the painting. Let's see if I can get all the way down to the actual painting.
That would be awesome.
It just gets worse and worse.
And how long did it take you to do this final piece?
I think like a couple of days.
Wow.
I'm gonna say usually you don't get more than. I think I spent like 3 days on this, which is probably too much.
Did you say it's probably way too much?
I think that's probably too much time. Yeah, usually people want you to get paintings done like within a day.
And what resolution do you typically work at?
So that was the sketch for the painting.
Oh wow!
So I did this quick sketch, and then when I was done, I turned that into this. Yeah.
Amazing.
The resolution I work at is usually 11 by 17, 300 DPI, just so that prints nice. So I usually just do that.
Okay.
So questions on Pacific Rim, where do you guys want me to start at?
So the first question we had about Pacific Rim, well actually, I'll just ask, I'm going to do that one second. The first one is, in order to be a mechanical prop designer, is it important to learn core industrial design, or can you break with foundations in like dynamic sketching?
I think that it is really important to learn about industrial design if you can. Sorry, I'm getting a little water.
No problem.
Because, that's what it is. The principles, what I use to design the Jaegers, and when I work on them, and what I use to, when I work on any project, I always lean on my experiences and the stuff I learned in industrial design. But it's more than that, so you can't just do that. We had Oscar Ciccione working on the Jaegers as well, and he comes from illustration. So you don't have to come from industrial design to work in the entertainment industry, but it really helps. So if I was a student today, I went to the trans program at Art Center. I'm so glad that I did. I had a chance to make some models, and that was a really great experience, like translating and design from 2D to 3D.
Right.
But if you can take a class, if you can find a book, or just, find any information on it whenever you can, transportation design, automotive design, or product design, I mean, do it, because it's only going to help. But it's crazy because everything is important. I mean, when I came out of school, I think I had a good design background from Art Center, but I had a lot to learn, and still have a lot to learn, about illustration and, more of the fundamentals of art and design. I've since taken several classes on figure drawing, tried to get my figure drawing better, and so all that stuff kind of adds up to, what you need, all those skills to be an entertainment designer, basically. But I definitely think if you want to do techie stuff and you want that to be your focus, that's kind of my focus. It doesn't hurt if you're enrolled in an industrial design program at one of the great schools that they have. Like CCS in Detroit's a really good trans school. Art Center's a great industrial design school. Some great schools in Europe. So, yeah, if you can do it, and that's what you want to do, I think it's a good idea.
And also, we have a few mech design courses as well at CGMA, so check those out. The next question I wanted to bring up related to the iteration thing. So the question in full context was, the attendee wanted to know, I was wondering how many iterations did you go through to make like the kaijus possible or acceptable as a finished design? And have you ever used photo bashing technique to create them?
The kaijus, I only worked on one of the kaijus, the blade head, and that was based on an original concept sketch by Wayne Barlow. And then I did a pass on the design. We do that quite a bit in the entertainment industry. We pass stuff around. Most images are passed around quite a bit. And then, of course, the artist at ILM or wherever the effects house is, the guy who's actually making it or making the sculpt, usually, finesses the proportions some too. And so it's a very collaborative process. The amount of iterations that went through for the Jaegers or really anything again, it's just kind of time sensitive. I mean, there weren't really a lot of iterations that went into, say, Stryker, the image that you see in front of you. I mean, I did a couple of sketches. Francisco did some sketches, Francisco Ruiz. Then I noticed that the ILM guys did some stuff to the chest, and missiles coming out of the chest came from ILM. I believe Alex Jaeger was his name, but I could be wrong. Excuse me. I mean, I know Alex. I just don't know specifically if he was behind those missile chest missiles.
Right.
So usually you just you might do like 3 or 4 quick sketches to grab the director's eye, and then move it into final render. And as you're painting along, there's a lot of feedback as well that you get. And again, it all counts too, because it's like, when you're doing the illustration, it's the color and the trim and the weathering and signage and all that stuff. And if you get it all working, and get it all in the right place, then you usually get a sign off. How long that takes it totally varies. Like sometimes ideally, honestly, you just want to hit it out the park the first time. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
But that obviously doesn't always happen.
Okay, and along those lines, another questioner has, they want to know, so when you are doing mechs like this, are you working with an engineer or someone like that to make it more realistic?
No. We are the engineers. I mean, you have to, I think that's where industrial design can come into play, but also looking at reference. I mean, I look at a lot of reference about mechanical, objects and cranes and construction equipment and, the joints, mechanisms on toys, like, really anything. And it's really up to the concept artist to figure out those issues as best they can. And then, again, there's another pass when it goes to the 3D modeler who has to finesse the shapes, because a lot of times what looks good in a 2D drawing, when you actually go to move it, and they go to rig it, it actually won't rig correctly. Like, you know, they'll find out that this joint right here needs to be separated from the body a little bit more. Otherwise, this whole armor piece collides with the shoulder. So there's just all kinds of stuff like that that you can't see until you bring it into the 3D model. I mean, you could you know, I've developed a pretty good eye for that stuff over the years, but even still, you know, there's going to be a certain amount of collision. A lot of times they leave the collision alone. They don't really, you know, because it's film, so they can kind of cheat it, or again, they can sort of hide it. But you want to try to avoid collision between objects as much as possible in your design, and a lot of that requires you to do your research and look at, like I said, construction equipment and all kinds of things to make sure that the design not only looks cool, but is somewhat, you know, plausible. Like you feel like it, you know, if it just looks cool but it can't move, then that's not a good thing.
Okay. There's a couple people wanting to know if there's any particular industrial design books you could or would recommend for them to check out.
I mean, you know, that's the one area that I feel like there hasn't been a lot. I think Scott Robertson actually has some really good ones. Anything from Design Studio Press, and truthfully, like, you know, in today's, aside from books, in today's market, I feel like you don't have to go to Art Center these days as much. I mean, because places like CGMA and different schools online. I mean, I take classes online, so you could, you know, get some training through online courses where you could, you know, work with a guy with an industrial design background to kind of punch up your skills. As far as books, I think that there's the, yeah, off the top of my head, there's some books at Design Studio Press, and anything, you know, just go into the design section or Amazon and type in like industrial design or product design, and usually some pretty good things pop up. I mean, I don't, nothing off the top of my head. Like studying industrial design is as much about like learning about it, like not necessarily like taking a course, but like just really educating yourself on it and becoming familiar with it, like, which is as simple as picking up a design manual. Like, there are a lot of design manuals that come out where it's basically like the best products of the year, the best cars of the year, and they'll put them all into a nice book, and you can find those on Amazon. And you want to kind of familiarize yourself with the world of industrial design. So that way, because when you look at stuff, whatever you look at is kind of what you'll pull from. When it comes time to create stuff, it'll just subconsciously come out onto the page. So if you're looking at a lot of product design and you're looking at a lot of industrial design stuff, like good industrial design stuff, then that stuff's just going to kind of come out onto the page. You know, we're sort of, that's, you know, the stuff we look at is usually influences, obviously, the stuff that we create that comes out of us. So I would not only take the courses, but start by like just looking at a lot of it. You know, a really great thing to do, and I did this when I was in LA, that was great about living there, was you just go to the design districts. Most major cities have one. I have one in Dallas here. There was a huge one in LA. And just go check out the latest products there, you know, like anything, coffee makers, like, don't even think of them as like products. They're just pieces of sculpture. And look at the forms, look at the shapes. And if you want to take it a step further, and I have done this myself, is bring your sketchbook and sketch them. You know, you know, go to car shows and sketch them, look at concept cars and sketch them, go to design stores and sketch some of the stuff. It's a really great exercise to familiarize yourself with the shapes and forms of industrial design. Yeah, that would be a good thing to do.
Awesome. Thank you for that information. Are you able to now zoom in a bit on the Striker mech you have on screen and show some detail?
Yes. It never looks as good when you zoom in.
I think people want to see some of your brush strokes, I guess, and the construction of it.
So look at how bad that looks. Oh God! And if we zoom out, look at that. It looks good. Usually when I make an image, that's a good piece of advice, is that the younger me used to give. The younger me, it had to look good this close, otherwise I wouldn't stop rendering it. But it doesn't matter. Nobody ever looks at stuff like this. I usually look at stuff like this. So I'll always just bounce in and out of an image and make sure, like, how does it look from this view? If it looks good from here, then I don't need to obsess and spend a lot of time on that stuff. On this movie, I used his photos as I needed to, but I wanted to paint as much stuff as I could just because I like painting. So I found the photo of this stuff, and I did. I mean, on some of the other images, I just slapped in photos, and there is nothing wrong with using photos. As a matter of fact, it's the smarter way to go. And I'm using photos in other areas, but I just kind of like squint my eyes and look at the photos, and then I try to figure out how to recreate that with just some brush strokes. So that way, from a distance, it look realistic. The one thing that I wish I did on this image that I didn't, and I think I'll go in and fix this. I should have used text like a type. I should have just printed this out as a
font or something.
Yeah. I should have just put it as a font and then laid it on his chest. And I don't know why I didn't do that. But I can always fix that later. So as we go in, I was looking at a lot of, man, this looks terrible. No,
actually, someone just asked a question. Do you spend more time painting zoomed out rather than zoomed in because of that?
No. When I paint, when I do the lay-in, and let's see if I could get down to the initial lay-in, I paint out. I paint in like a thumbnail form. I always make better decisions as a painter when I'm zoomed out as a painting. When I am zoomed in like this, I make horrible decisions because I can't see the whole image. And every stroke, every color, and every shape only exists in relation to the rest of the painting, meaning like to consider the shape of this fender thing back here in isolation like this is a mistake. You have to consider it within the context of the entire image. So how does that shape work in relation to the rest of the image? Is it balanced? Should it? And that's what will tell you, like, should I move it to the left? Should I move it to the right? Should it be bigger, smaller? Obviously, taking into account perspective and stuff like that. But I'm really talking about like rhythm and flow and like how the image feels compositionally, how his pose feels. And if I work in isolation and I just zoom in on stuff, I'm not considering the whole image. So I end up with a very fragmented looking image. Or, and this hurts real bad, I'll end up with this thing looking awesome, and then I'll zoom out, and it will look odd in the rest of the image. So I do a lot of bouncing back and forth, but I try and work it. Sorry, I'm so sick. I try and work it that I block in the whole painting, where basically if I squint my eyes, that's what the final painting will look like. So that way I already made all my big decisions, and I kind of know where the shapes are, and I know where everything needs to be. So that way, if I'm using photos or I'm painting, that I could just really zoom in and kind of detail the stuff out. And I'm not worrying about whether or not it's going to fit in with the painting, because I already did that in walkout. But I'll still check myself and zoom out to make sure the stuff's working. So let's see if I can deconstruct this painting. And these mirrors are set up not necessarily for a demo. They're just set up as I left them. So there's a foreground layer of mist and atmosphere and some of the planes. And that's it. That's the layer. I'm just kidding. Hopefully I have this guy broken down into some kind of layer. I'm sure I do. Okay, yeah, that's just a flattened. See, that's what I usually do. It's like I'll paint it and then I'll collapse it all together. So that's the collapse one. These are the actual layers. So decals are really huge on mechs. I love doing like sci-fi stuff. That's, I love doing that stuff. On this painting, I did the decals by hand, just implying them with paint. But I made a bunch of brushes of decals now, so I don't have to really search for these things. So I could just use my brush and slap them on. But the way I was doing them here was I was just scribbling them on. Again, I think it's better if you just use actual. So you see how like all these little details, when you pull back, they really go a long way to kind of tying the image together. And then little kaiju blood. And what else do I have? I get rid of this. Then I have the creature. Then I have the background. And I have nothing.
Wow.
So we missed the atmosphere, little color correcting. That's it. You know, there was more of a, there was more stuff, but I collapsed most of the layers. So don't think that don't think that the painting went down that way. Basically, what happens is I end up like working it. It's absolutely the image so huge. But yeah, all of that was chunked in. I actually have. This one has a better example of what I'm talking about.
And are these one-day paintings for you?
Oh, wait. No. Usually, like this Striker Eureka image, that took, I was averaging about 3 to painting. You know, it took me like 3 days to do this. But usually prior to this, there was an improved concept that I did so I did like a drawing, and it's on my website. There's like a drawing of Striker, you know, just on like a white background. So I already knew what Striker looked like.
Awesome.
So let's go to another one. So this one kind of shows you. Actually, I'll start with the original. Oh, by the way, these are my brush. I save this is my decal sheet. So I make these, and then I just kind of slap them on. I make them into brushes, and then I have the brush saved.
Right.
And if I want to, I have one for my name.
As every artist should.
I have like some of that stuff, and
now, do any of these decals have to be approved by legal in order before they can be put on the design?
Yes. I mean, as long as I'm not, you know, doing anything weird. You know. Okay, so excuse me. This is the one of the earlier images. Hold on a second.
Oh, wow.
The way this, I did this painting,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't look like this. It was a little bit different, but I did a painting, and he liked it. The painting originally had this character with this like V-shaped glasses, like a gladiator mech. He wanted me to add some elements like the eye and this double arm thing from a design that Francisco had drawn, and so I revisited the design. When I did the painting, I adjusted the painting, and then he said, "Oh, okay, like that'll be whatchamacallit, Crimson Typhoon," which was very exciting. And then I went in and I fleshed out the design based on the painting. What happened to all that? Oh. So usually I went backwards from the painting and did like a little side sheet where I was kind of fleshing out, you know, what he looked like.
So yeah, so basically I'm going to ask, so you do, for the most part, silhouettes to get that basic form outline and then add detail on top, or?
Yeah. So here, this will show you. See, keep going backwards. See how that kind of, I'm working backwards. So each detail. Now he changed a little bit from this too. But,
Okay.
I was kind of looking at, I really like the legs that I did here, and I like the shield. I couldn't do the V-shaped head, and I had to get rid of the blade arm and put the double arms on. So I was kind of taking different from things and just hacking it out as simply as possible. So that's how I start, is basically start with this little sketch, same way I did these. And this is mostly for me, like figuring out the design. I would have to take this to a higher level of completion to show it to him, to anybody. So then from there, I select an area and break down my basic shapes of the design,
Right.
and then just keep adding details. And then from there, I had this. And then from there, I wanted to make some changes because I felt like there wasn't enough shape variety going on. So then I did this. That was the final design that he approved. And then I took that and I blew it up into the final painting. He's giving feedback all the way. Everybody, any director is going to come by and give a lot of feedback. They have a tremendous amount of input into the way stuff looks, especially someone like Guillermo, who's a great artist and designer in his own right. So here is the original image, and I could kind of walk back. Like you can kind of see how I'm refining it. And
Very cool.
so I'm kind of going through, adding in weathering in detail, and I like to do a weathering by hand, but the photos works just as good. I just feel like if you get, I'm more control if I do it by hand, and rather than like I'll put the scratches exactly where I want the scratches, as opposed to throwing on a photo and letting the photo tell me where the scratches are.
Right.
So it's a little bit of sunlight layer, like the skylight I'm placing on, and then just keep going through. That was like a really soft little piece of metal. I'll get rid of this layer, and you can see it's like metal.
Right.
But add a little bit of noise. Get rid of the light, and then just keep walking backwards.
How do you decide the placement for your main direct light source as far as bringing out the features and forms of the design?
I just usually whatever shows up in the design the best. In this case, it was a 3/4 front light. So just going back from there, I took that small painting. Hold on. So I took this. You saw how I was just rendering it out.
Right.
And then I blew it up and did this final image from it. And I could back out of this one and show you some of the details. So that's pretty much the image that was on the background. That's pretty much that image, which was taken from that really crappy sketch. And you could see, this stuff's still pretty chunky, like not really detailed.
Right.
But it's all in there. It's all subjective. When the commenter, the person who asked the question earlier about, do I work away from the image, like the image in the thumb? Like this is how I'll work an image at about this size when it comes to designing stuff. Because this way I'm getting like a really quick first impression of things, and that I do this a lot at work now and stuff. Quick first impression of things, and then from there I'll slap it onto and do like a full illustration. And you can see that it's basically the same image, or it is the same image, and then I just go in and I'm adding like a bunch of details.
That's
so I
awesome.
might, like if you focus on, you focus on this area right here, like if you look at that little spot, you know. So, and it's mostly about edges. Like, you know, it's really important to define your edges, and especially with mech stuff, like most edges are fairly like, they have like, when metal scratches, it exposes, like it either gets rusted, like when there's a metal, it either gets rusted or it exposes the metal underneath. So that usually means that the metal is going to have some kind of color to it. In this case, I went with like a green, and in the case of the red, I went with like a gray, and in the case of this stuff, I went with a green color. So really, something to finish really fast is to just focus on the edges and handle, you know, do your wet break, and all of a sudden it will look really finished. And what's cool is, like, I tell this to people now all the time, but it's really, really important that when you weather stuff from a value standpoint, the weathering is different. The chip marks and the rust is different from the paint that you're putting it on. So if the color of the paint is like, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, the paint is like a 5 in terms of how dark or light it is. What you want to do is make sure, or let's say it's like a 3, you want to make sure that the rust that you put on is like a 7. So that way it's darker and it pops. Because a lot of times, just some color under the value, then a lot of times the rust just kind of disappears. It doesn't really pop. So you'll notice that like all the little chip marks on here, they really, really pop out because they're a different value than the actual base color of the material. I'm curious if I back out of this.
So I have a couple questions here. The first I want to ask is, they want to know, how can I work on my edge work? Any quick exercises I can practice to improve edge quality?
Not really. Just look at stuff. I mean, actually, yeah, you totally could. That's actually the original painting up on there. You could actually work on your edge work, which is by from real life. Like, go find some reference of some, like, a beat-up old dirty, you know, like lawnmower or something. Go to cgtextures.com and find like a photo of something really messed up, like a piece of machinery that's super old and weathered, and just do a painting of it. And you'll practice. I mean, when I'm looking at this stuff in all these paintings, I'm looking at machines and aircraft carriers and wartime machines. That was the look we went with, was like wartime machines. Like, I'm looking at tanks during Desert Storm. I'm looking at, you know, lawnmowers that are really old, you know, and just anything with like dirt texture and character on it. So if I was you, work on that stuff, then I would go find photos of that stuff and paint from it as much as possible. The way that I learned how to weather stuff, looking at.
Wait, can you repeat that for us again? You were breaking up.
A lot of the weather stuff, like how to make things look really weathered by hand. At reference, like this, the metal looks very. The way that the weathering is, I'm not just making it up. I'm using what the photos and what my research taught me about how metal ages. And you really have to, like, same with industrial design. It's the same thing with this. Like, you have to educate yourself on how to make things look aged and weathered, and what the edges of materials look like when they get old. And so, and have that stuff open on your screen while you're working, so that way you can, you can use it and make your stuff look real. This one went through the same process as the original little rough sketch, and then that's the final. And I have some of the layers on this. You can keep asking me questions.
Oh, no, there's another question, actually. They wanted to know, how did you land this particular gig? Did you apply for the job itself, or were you approached to work on it?
I was approached to work on it. I had a friend call me who was on the project, good friend of mine, and he asked me to come be a part of it, and went there and started working on stuff. And then with films, like with anything, you usually, any project I've been on, you really need to find your spot fast, you know, like sort of, oh, he's good at doing this, well, let him do more of that stuff. And so, you know, I was fortunate enough that Guillermo liked the way I was doing the Jaegers and my contribution to the Jaegers, and so he just kept giving me more stuff to do in that department, and it was really fun. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's who you know, because you wouldn't get asked if they didn't like your work. So it's not really about who you know. If you have good work and you're out there on the internet and people know who you are, then you know you're going to get a random phone call one day to work on something really cool. So yeah.
Okay. The next question is, how has your process changed from when you started out learning to paint to now?
My process, I've focused mainly on shapes now, and I didn't do that before. When I say shapes, I mean like when I squint my eyes and look at a painting, you know, something like this. It's really all about the overall shape. Let me see if I can open this in Photoshop.
And for those of you here again, please enter any questions you have. We have about 5 more minutes left for this interview. So any questions you have, this is your time now to enter them in. But back to you, Hugo.
When I actually, you know, it's a really good way to do this is if we just go to my old paintings in my portfolio. So a couple of things that I think I've gotten a lot better at. I used to make paintings by doing like something like this or something like this, which are slightly older, doing one tree at a time, one bush at a time, one brick surface at a time. I would throw on the texture and then adjust it. Like I did it the same way that I did the other paintings, you know, that I've been showing you, but like I would kind of do a photo texture at a time. Like I'd do like a quick rough color lay-in where everything was established, and then I'd go in and add my photos. But instead of, I would adjust each photo at a time as I put it in. And the way that I work now is I just kind of put in the photos, get them all hacked in, and then globally adjust them all at once. So it's almost like I go in and using like color dodge, lighten, darken, the different settings on a brush that you have in Photoshop. And I would hit all these trees at once now. And I'd hit this whole grass at once now, as opposed to doing like a chunk at a time, which was way, way too time-consuming and kind of stupid. But then also I think I'm much more aware of shapes now. Like this doesn't really, like right now this figure kind of gets lost in this sky, whereas I think if I painted it now, I would probably be much more aware of, like I'd be looking at this more as like an abstract composition of shapes as opposed to actual pillars and towers and things like that. That's been my biggest growth as an artist, I think, is I've gotten better at seeing the shapes in a painting. I think as a designer, yeah, you know, it's just the same thing, really, just focusing on shape and flow and rhythm and stuff more than you know, it's not anything that I didn't know then. I mean, a lot of things, like you'll take a lot of courses and you'll hear a lot of the same stuff said again and again. But like, I already knew about shapes and things like that and edges and all that jazz back when I painted this. I just didn't understand it as well as I do now. Like, and in 5 years, I'm gonna, look back at the stuff I do now and probably think, wow, I really wasn't applying those principles very well in those paintings. The exciting part of being an artist, you're always stuff. And yeah, just it's getting much more efficient.
Okay.
The environment, just things like that.
And what have been some of your main influences over the years?
Definitely transportation design. I'm a huge fan of. Has been.
Hello, you're breaking up there. Sorry.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you now. Okay, perfect.
Sorry. Andrew Loomis continues to be my greatest teacher. I've read them so many times to get like a better understanding of things. So many artists online. I mean, you just see so many people online who are so inspiring. I mean, anybody, you name them. I mean, most of the teachers that you have teaching at your school, quite frankly, people like Kevin Chen. I learned so much from him. He teaches down in L.A. The people I work with, I mean, I learned so much from working with guys like Wayne Barlow and Guy Davis and Francisco and Oscar and stuff, and Doug Williams. I mean, I'm honestly like I feel like I'm always going to be a student, so I just keep my eyes open, and I'm just such a fan of people's work that I feel like everybody's got something that you could apply to your own stuff and learn from. I mean, Doug Williams, he does these great little amazing pen drawings, and his technique. I was fascinated with his technique, so I've just been kind of messing around with that technique for a while now, and I mean, there's a teacher, Ricky Sue, at Art Center, and that guy is a ridiculous designer, and I still to this day I'm heavily influenced by that guy, and I haven't, that was 9 years ago, but I still have his demos and stuff, so I'm very much influenced by the people in the industrial design world, but also by the people that I'm fortunate enough to work with on a daily basis. There's a bunch of guys at ID right now that are like, just, yeah, really, really talented guys who I feel like I'm learning from every day. Hopefully they're learning something from me, but I'm definitely learning something from them.
I'm quite sure they are. And I guess this will be our last question to close out this particular session. Is there a singular defining moment in your artistic career, or that basically you knew that you had, in a way, not made it, but basically became the artist that you want? Or was it a gradual process?
I guess Pacific Rim, although I think, to be honest, I think the project that I'm working on now, actually, yeah, the project I'm working on right now is definitely that project. I'm just not allowed to discuss it until until later on. But right. The stuff that we're getting to do at ID right now is really, really exciting, and I feel like I find it incredibly satisfying. And then, but I think Pacific Rim probably, that getting to work with all those artists and Guillermo is really satisfying. And then, what was the question again specifically, that I'd made it, or?
Well, basically the attendee wanted to know if you could identify a defining moment in your career, or was it just a gradual process to become the artist that you are right now? So
I think Pacific Rim, there's a couple of them. Pacific Rim is definitely one of them. Getting the job at ID Software and working on this project right now has been one of them. Going to Blur, the first job out of school on Naughty Dog on Jack X Team Racing, when I was doing this stuff, I can't tell you I was in heaven. I mean, I felt like I went to school to learn a craft, I worked on my craft for years and years and years. I finally got a real job as a real concept artist, full-time, in-house, getting to apply all the things I learned about design and everything. And it was thrilling. I mean, every day I went home and told my wife, I'm like, I am freaking out right now. This is like the happiest moment of my life, professionally speaking. And so that's really stood out to me. And yeah, and then getting the job at Blur and just a bunch of stuff. There's been like, I got to work on the main villain for Sonic the Hedgehog in their latest game, and I'm sitting there drawing it. I'm like, man, kids are going to play with this toy, and this is going to be a character that will probably live on for a long time, hopefully. That was really exciting. So Pacific Rim was a very high-profile project, and certainly getting to work with Guillermo is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So that was really, really amazing. I'm so appreciative that I had that chance. So yeah, that was sort of a long answer, but
that was
yeah,
perfect, actually. So again, thank you so much for giving us a part of your Saturday today. For everyone, again, Hugo is the art director at id Software, and look out for the new Doom game coming out from id soon, I hope. But again, from me to you, Hugo, thank you so much for this wonderful live interview. And to all our attendees, thank you for attending this session. Remember, registration is open now for CGMA classes, so please check out our website and sign up for your classes as soon as possible because they do sign up quickly. Beyond that, again, Hugo, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate it for everybody who logged on and all really great questions.
Yes, and you're getting a bunch of thank yous and everything, so everyone's really happy for what you shared.
Thank you to them, and I really appreciate it. I hope this was helpful.
Yes, it was. Well, basically, this is goodbye, so everyone enjoy the rest of your weekend, and talk to you later. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.